Hello and welcome to today's lecture. Today I'm going to be reading a long message from Thoth with commentary on the first gate. And I should let you know ahead of time that some of this may not make sense to you, but I'm going to do my best to help make whatever sense of it I can so that you can understand it at least as well as I do. And this knowledge, of course, is the knowledge of creation. It is knowledge that perhaps we're not intended to understand it fully right at the very beginning, but with time it'll become clear. Regardless, the knowledge itself is precious. It is unparalleled in its importance. Okay, here we have Thoth talking about the first flame of illumination. And I should say, before we get started with Thoth, in my next lecture I'm going to discuss at length the commentary of our great committee, the Flame Committee, talking about the Chinese language for the Eastern Gate, the Hawaiian language for the Central Gate, especially when we talk about the Chinese language, the analysis that the Chinese committee went through to select the language and then to analyze the terms is truly breathtaking. I will get that to you in the next lecture along with the words of the committee so that you can see just how much work went into simply trying to understand traces of empty and apply its meaning to ancient Chinese language for the Eastern Gate. But here is Thoth's commentary on the first flame, Traces of Empty. This is the essence. Essence contained in written expression of knowledge. The written word is form, form of thought. Just as the trace of empty gathers around it form of creation, thought gathers around it form of writing. Written word, form of spoken word, form of thought. Ancient writing contains close connection to origin. Two expressions of empty. Good. The big empty and the residual traces of empty. It is good to include both expressions in this first flame, flame of the first Phoenix Gate. Now we consider connection, connection of the big empty and the traces of empty. Because of the big empty, the traces of empty emerge. On account of location of the big empty, the traces of empty emerge. Two values are correct. Both values are significant in describing the condition. Phoenix Scroll contains a description of the condition of creation. The flames illumine each pod. The first flame illumines the path. One must know the way as the expedition begins. Two expressions of empty. Consider now two values of empty. Knowledge of the path is gained from the map. Look to the map. We look to the map of the flying seed. The higher realm expresses fullness, reflecting upon itself. The first seed indicates the source. 8 seeds emerge as tumbles of fullness, reflections of fullness. So here you can see a picture of the flying seed, and you can see that the high realm that Thoth referred to is represented by the clear pyramid on top of the flying seed. This is the first 9 seeds of the 81 seeds in the flying seed. The first 9 seeds are in this clear 8-sided pyramid. The very first seed is at the pinnacle of the pyramid. Then the next 8 seeds, seed number 2 through seed number 9, are represented by the 8 sides of the pyramid, the points, the 8 points at the bottom, at the base of the pyramid, represent seeds 2 through seed 9. 8 seeds emerge as tumbles of fullness. So, those 8 seeds, 2 through 9, those are represented at the base of the pyramid. Let's continue with what Thoth said. 8 tumbles, expressions of fullness, reflecting upon its own nature, limitless nature of fullness. Within the limitless infinite, the finite is found. Empty is located within full. As the illustrious committee reported, empty is located within non-finite. Remember in the Holy Season course, especially at the beginning of the second cycle, Thoth described how the source, through tumbling in fullness, finds these traces of the seeds. So it finds the empty within fullness. These first seeds, not actually the first 8 seeds, because the very first seed is the source reflecting upon itself. But then seed 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, those 8 seeds come about by the source tumbling through fullness, finding the finite within the infinite. So those 8 seeds come about through 8 tumbles, 8 rotations. These are the initial rotations of creation that Lantos has been referring to since he first introduced us to biogenesis. This is the process of creation. Thoth went on, he said, the high realm of the map reveals reflections of fullness as the 8-sided pyramid. Now, lift the pyramid. And Cindy was surprised that Thoth actually was asking her to participate in this instead of simply giving her some words. And she had the flying seed right there. So she stood up and walked over to the flying seed, and she lifted up the pyramid. Thoth said, what do you see? And Cindy said, nothing. Space. She was looking at the empty platform underneath the clear pyramid that the clear pyramid sits upon, and that is at the top of the rest of the flying seed pyramid. It's just empty. There's nothing there. And Thoth said, yes. No thing. No thing. Empty. This is the big empty, that which separates form from non-form. So we can take a look at the picture of the flying seed, and you can see the arrow is pointing to that platform that the clear pyramid sits upon. This is what Thoth is talking about. Remember, when Lantos first introduced the flying seed pyramid, he said that that clear 8-sided pyramid at the top represents seeds 1 through 9. Seeds 1 through 9 are uncreated. They are not yet in creation. The rest of the seeds, starting with seed 10, are within creation. And this is what is so special about the knowledge that has been given to us at this point in time. The knowledge of the final pod, the first 9 seeds, seed 1 through seed 9. The knowledge of this pod was withheld in most of the instances where the knowledge of the flying seed and the song of the spheres was brought forth. Knowledge of this pod was withheld. So the fact that we have this knowledge this time makes the knowledge significantly more powerful. Thoth went on, he said, initial rotations of creation, reflections of fullness, locating the great empty. Just as the great wave crashes upon itself, sending pieces of sea spray outwards, the cycling rotations of fullness, locating the great empty, send splashes of empty outwards. It is a spray of empty. Traces of empty emerge. 8 cycles of realization of empty within fullness. 8 tumbles. Fullness reflects upon itself. This is the process of initial rotations. 8 initial tumbles, initial rotations, locating the great empty, the gap between form and non-form. 8 tumbles, as full realizes empty, nil. Through location of the big empty, creation emerges. This may be said. It may be said that the great empty is the source of all. Not so, by reason of existence of fullness. So, what does this mean? What did Thoth mean by this final statement? It's easier if we back up a few sentences and reread what he said. He said, fullness reflects upon itself. This is the process of initial rotations. 8 initial tumbles, initial rotations, locating the great empty, the gap between form and non-form. 8 tumbles, as full realizes empty, nil. Through location of the big empty, creation emerges. This is just what we were talking about. This is what Thoth mentioned during the Holy Season course. This is the process of creation, the initial rotations of creation, when the source reflects upon itself and then has tumbling, 8 tumbles, 8 initial rotations as it goes out finding the finite within fullness, within the infinite. Thoth continued, now we consider the expressions of the source, seeds of creation. Come, look within each seed. What do you see? So Cindy, again, stood up, went to the flying seed. She said, empty. In the center is a hole. Empty. So let's take a look at what she was talking about. You can see as we've looked in, zoomed in on the flying seed, let's take a look at that light violet seed. In the center of it is actually a hole. Now that hole was there so that it could be attached to the frame of the flying seed, but it does mean that there is a hole in the center, an empty within the center of the seed. And Thoth went on about this. He said, yes, within each seed empty is found. These are the traces of empty. Minute expressions give rise to form. Form encircles the empty. Form gathers around traces of empty. There is connection between the great empty and the traces of empty. So again, with the seeds, the way we have it, form encircles the empty, the traces of empty. Let's move on. Thoth said, consider now phoenix gates. 9 gates, 9 flames of the phoenix. First gate enters into the 81st seed. First gate opens the way for the return to the source. There is connection between that which is above and that which is below. Final tumble of fullness is commented on by the final pod emerging from the source. Connection between 9th seed and the final pod. Nature of this pod is found in the 3rd spin key of the 9th seed. Cindy said that she didn't really understand what he said, and she thought that he realized that she didn't really understand because he paused quite a while, and then he said this. We are considering the first gate. Use of the term first in consideration of return to the source. First gate is the last gate to emerge from the source. Last to emerge is connected with the tumble of full. It is the same to say first gate is connected with the ninth seed. Connection with the ninth seed. Examine the ninth seed diagram. Expression emerges out of third key. Third spin key gives direction for expression. Third spin key is waning. Waning becomes realm lord for the first pod. Connection is seen here. Direction passes through empty into expression. Okay, so what does that mean? Let's take a look at the leaves, first for seed 9 and then for seed 81. So he spoke about seed 9, the third spin key. So we see the third spin key is waning. And then he said that it becomes the realm lord for the first pod. Waning becomes the realm lord for the first pod. The first pod begins with seed 81 and goes down to seed 73. And for those 9 seeds, the realm lord is going to be waning. And you can see it at the top of seed 81. So all 9 of those seeds in the first pod as we are returning back to the source, that realm lord is going to be waning. And that's because seed 9, the final tumble, the final seed that emerges through the final tumble, the third spin key of that seed is waning. Now, this is going to make a little more sense in just a moment. Thoth said, now consider the 8th seed. Third spin key of 8th seed is full. Full becomes realm lord for the second pod. Look to the 7th seed. Third key is waxing. Waxing becomes realm lord for the third pod. Like this, relationship continues. Okay, so let's take a look at that 8th seed. And we see the third spin key on the 8th seed is full, so we move to the second pod. The second pod begins with seed 72, and it goes down to seed 64, and we see the realm lord in all 9 of those seeds is going to be full. And that's because it's connected with seed 8. Then we go to seed 7, and we'll connect it with the third pod. The third pod is going to be seeds 63 through 55. If we take a look at the third spin key on seed 7, it is waxing. If we take a look at the realm lord for this next pod of 9 seeds, it is also going to be waxing. What this means is that those first seeds, technically seed 2 through seed 9, those seeds are going to be related to the pods as we return to the source. So the first pod is beginning with seed 81. The second pod begins with seed 72. The third pod begins with seed 63. And we can see that connection with those individual seeds, seed 9, seed 8, seed 7, seed 6. And this is what Thoth meant when he said that there is a connection between these initial seeds and the gates of the phoenix. The last seed, the 9th seed, issues the first gate of the phoenix, the first gate as we return to the source. That is the last gate to be created, but it is the first gate as we return to the source. Because when we return to the source, we start with seed 81. So we have to pass through the first gate to get into seed 81 and that first pod of seeds. Thoth went on, he said, the first 9 seeds comment on fullness reflecting upon itself, generating the great empty. Beyond the great empty, seeds comment upon the rotations, upon the tumbles of fullness. Each tumble generates a gate. Through each phoenix gate, 9 traces of empty are released. There is a connection between the 8 tumbling cycles and the rotational realm lord value contained within the seeds of the pod. The first seed, the first value, does not engage in tumble. It is a swelling up value of fullness. So again, we have the phoenix gates directly related to seeds 2 through seed 9. Seed 2 through seed 9, those seeds are directly related to the gates, the phoenix gates. Each tumble generates a gate. So remember, the initial rotations of creation, fullness reflecting upon itself, tumbling out into fullness, searching for the finite, for empty, for nil within fullness. Those initial tumbles create the gates of the phoenix. Through each phoenix gate, a pod of 9 seeds is released. 9 seeds, 9 traces of empty. Remember how we just saw that each seed has emptiness within the center and form encircles emptiness. That emptiness is a trace of empty. These are traces of empty that are released with these phoenix gates. So through each phoenix gate, the pod of 9 seeds will be released. 9 traces of empty. Thoth went on, he said, now consideration of the juncture between realms. Seed 9, leading into seed 10. Passage through the big empty. Connection by means of direction. Locate this juncture on the map. Identify the connection. So again, Cindy stood up. She went to the flying seed. This time she brought her pen and her notebook so she could write down what he said. She asked about how to determine which point on the base of the pyramid was the 9th seed. Because what we knew was the first seed was the pinnacle, but we didn't know how to tell which of the 8 points at the base of the pyramid would be seed 2, seed 3, seed 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And Thoth said that the 9th seed is located through the juncture. The juncture indicates the entry point from one realm to the next. And the point above that is the 9th seed. She pointed to it and he said, yes. She wanted to write down, to sit down to write what he had said, but then he asked her to locate the first gate and the connecting point on the pyramid. And she wasn't sure exactly how he phrased that, but she pointed to the entry gate, the space right to the left of seed 81, the aqua seed. And then she noticed that it was right on the line directly down from this point, the ninth seed that he had just told her to point out. So let's take a look at what this interaction was talking about. Take a look at the picture of the flying seed pyramid. Let's zoom in on it and let's take a look. The arrow is pointing towards a little piece of metal, the little piece of the silver metal that is just to the right of that first rays seed, which is the topmost seed that we can physically see on the flying seed. That is the juncture between the first 9 seeds, this is the uncreated, and the 10th seed, which begins the seeds which are within creation. Now, the 9th seed is the base of the pyramid that is in line with that juncture point. That juncture, the metal juncture, when it reaches that platform that the 8-sided pyramid sits upon, that point of the 8-sided pyramid is the 9th seed. Now let's take a look again at the flying seed. We're going to zoom out just a bit there. We have an arrow pointing at the ninth seed. So again, this is just at the top of that metal juncture that connects the spiral to that metal base that the clear eight-sided pyramid sits upon. Now you're going to notice at the base of that line of seeds is the aqua blue seed that is the very last seed, seed 81. The first gate of the phoenix leads to seed 81. The first pod of seeds, as we return to the source, will be seed 81 through seed 73, and that is going to be that aqua blue seed, and then the dark blue, and then the rest of them. And in fact, we can take a look and we can see arrows pointing. We pointed out most of them, not the ones on the backside for you. Didn't want to confuse too much. But this is the first pod of seeds as we start returning to the source. The first gate of the phoenix is what gives rise, what releases this pod of seeds. And the first gate of the phoenix is produced with that ninth seed. Now, let's take a look. We're going to show, well, let's read a little bit more what Thoth said, and then we're going to show some more on this. Thoth said, each pod is a commentary on a reflection of fullness, on a tumble of fullness. Each of the 8 tumbling values generates a phoenix gate. Phoenix gates are locations through which creation emerges, through which the traces of empty emerge. A gate is the space between. Gates are the first values to form out of the great empty. 9 gates, 9 flames of the phoenix. Like the great wave and the sea spray, the great wave rises and curls upon itself. Within this curl, the great empty is located. Expressions of this rotation generating empty are contained within the sea spray. Minute particles, traces, form surrounding empty, traces. The first gate is associated with the value of expression located in the 9th seed. The second gate is associated with the value located in the 8th seed. See now the connection between the traces of empty and the great empty. This connection is shown through the map. As one completes expedition through the 8th pod, one arrives at the 9th gate. Following the 10th seed, one arrives at the 9th gate. Okay, let's take a look at this before we get to the 9th gate. The first gate we just looked at, it's associated with the value of expression located in the 9th seed. And through the first gate, the first pod of seeds is released, seed 81 down to seed 73. Now, the second gate is associated with the value of expression located in the 8th seed. Now, I've put an arrow pointing to the location of the 8th seed. It's sort of hard to see it. Just know that the 9th seed is right where that metal juncture reaches up to the great empty, to the base that the clear pyramid sits upon. The base, that corner, that side, that edge of the clear pyramid that joins that juncture is the 9th seed. The next seed to its right, the next seed going counterclockwise, will be the 8th seed. So seed 9, then seed 8. And seed 8, we can go all the way down and we see the aqua blue wheel that is almost at the very bottom of the flying seed. This particular one, this particular seed, is going to be seed 72. 72 begins our second pod of seeds, and the second gate is what releases this pod of seeds. So the 8th seed at the top is connected with the second gate of the phoenix. The second gate of the phoenix releases the second pod of 9 seeds, 9 traces of empty. The third gate would be associated with the seventh seed. The fourth gate is associated with the sixth seed. The fifth gate is associated with the fifth seed. The sixth gate of the phoenix is located with the fourth seed. The seventh gate is associated with the third seed. The eighth gate of the phoenix is associated with the second seed. That's the last of the seeds that are at the base of the eight-sided pyramid as we're moving counterclockwise from the ninth seed. We go from the ninth down to the second seed, and that's all we have at the base of that clear eight-sided pyramid that comes into contact with the great empty. The eighth pod of seeds will be released through this. So the eighth gate of the phoenix releases the eighth pod of seeds, the eighth pod of traces of empty. These will be seeds 18 down to seed 10. Now, Thoth on the ninth gate. The ninth gate is the gate of the great empty. This gate leads to profound fullness. Through holy vision, one passes through the ninth gate. Holy vision is attained in the 10th seed, seed of Shangri-La. Through holy vision, realization of profound fullness. Equipped with vision of two values of fullness, one passes through the great empty into full illumination. Realization of 108, the great fullness. Attainment of profound fullness. Excellent research for the first flame. Well done. Clear expressions offering entrance into the first gate. Profound research illuminating profound fullness. Okay. That is Thoth's commentary on the first flame, the first phoenix gate. I know it's hard to understand it. You can watch the video a few times. It gets easier as you listen to it and study it a little bit more. But again, this is the knowledge of creation. It is fundamentally important. And thank you very much for joining me today so that we could share this with all of you. And I'll speak with you again soon with more information about this first gate, and then we'll talk again about the second gate. Everyone have a great rest of your week.